Chapter 28. False Priorities. John chapter 9, verses 17 to 34. They say unto the blind man again, What sayest thou of him, that he hath opened thine eyes? He said, He is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him, that he had been blind, and received his sight, until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. And they asked him, saying, Is this your son, who ye say was born blind? How then doth he now see? His parents answered them and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But by what means he now seeth, we know not, or who hath opened his eyes, we know not. He is of age, ask him, he shall speak for himself. These words spake his parents, because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already, that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue. Therefore said his parents, He is of age, ask him. Then again called they the man that was blind, and said unto him, Give God the praise, we know that this man is a sinner. He answered and said, Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that, whereas I was blind, now I see. Then said they to him again, What did he to thee? How opened he thine eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and ye did not hear. Wherefore would ye hear it again? Will ye also be his disciples? Then they reviled him and said, Thou art his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spake unto Moses. As for this fellow, we know not from whence he is. The man answered and said unto them, Why, wherein is a marvellous thing, that ye know not from whence he is, and yet he hath opened mine eyes? Now we know that God heareth not sinners, but if any man be a worshipper of God, and doeth his will, him he heareth. Since the world began, was it not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind? If this man were not of God, he could do nothing. They answered and said unto him, Thou wast altogether born in sins, and dost thou teach us? And they cast him out. John chapter 9, verses 17 to 34. A stubborn fact faced the religious leaders. For a man born blind to gain sight as a mature man was an unheard-of miracle, and the miracle worker was Jesus. Their strategy was, first, to question the miracle. Was he really born blind, or was this a pretension? Second, if indeed the man was born blind, their goal was to separate the miracle from Jesus. They questioned again the man who had been born blind. What was his opinion of the man who healed him? The answer was clear-cut. He is a prophet. Verse 17. Whatever more he may have believed, this answer was enough to anger them. They refused to believe anything he said until they called his parents. The parents, for fear of excommunication from the synagogue, confirmed his blindness from birth, but, as to his healing, they said, He is of age, ask him. Verses 18 to 23. The fact of his blindness from birth was thus confirmed. This meant that a miracle had taken place. The approach of the religious leaders was now to separate the miracle from Jesus. Give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner. Verse 24. They were denying causality. Somehow, Jesus had nothing to do with the miracle because he was, for them, a sinner by definition. This rejection of causality should not surprise us, because it is very much with us today. The homosexuals are insistent that AIDS was caused by Christians, not by their own sins. More than a few boast of their infection as a battle wound incurred in the battle against Christianity. Their insistent denial of causality is commonplace in their thinking. Again and again in history, men and nations have forsaken rationality, denied causality, and insisted that reality be redefined to suit them. This is a mark of original sin, the will to be God and to know or establish truth, law and morality in terms of one's own will. We also see that the religious leaders are again called the Jews by John. Perhaps the key reason for this was the religious leaders' identification of themselves as the people. They regarded the Galileans, who were not concerned about the ways and goals of either Pharisees or Sadducees, as not really believers or true Israelites. The Jews who did not follow them were also seen as not, quote, the people, end quote. John, knowing them well, called attention to this self-identification. In our time, we see similar stands. Both the right and the left in the United States tend to see themselves alone, true Americans. The healed man said, "Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that, whereas I was blind, now I see." Verse 25. He insisted on keeping the miracle in the forefront. Trying to break down his witness, the Pharisees asked him to recount what had happened. Verse 36. The healed man answered, "I have told you already, and ye did not hear. Why are you asking again and again? Do you want to be his disciples?" Verse 27. This statement brought out their malice. They reviled him and said, "Thou art his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples." Verse 28. Jesus had again and again called attention to their betrayal of Moses and the law, but they were determined to pit Moses, safely dead, against Jesus, dangerously alive. They continued, "We know that God spake unto Moses. As for this fellow, we know not from whence he is." Verse 29. Both in verses 24 and 29, the religious leaders are determined to deny any causal relationship between Jesus and the miracle. William Hendrickson called attention to the syllogisms employed by the religious leaders. Syllogisms are methods of deductive reasoning. They consist of a major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion. A dictionary example is, every virtue is praiseworthy. Kindness is a virtue, therefore kindness is praiseworthy. This syllogism can also be called a false syllogism, however, because kindness to murderers and rapists is not a virtue in many cases. An obviously false syllogism is, all men are mortal, my dog is mortal, therefore my dog is a man. The religious leaders had two faulty syllogisms in mind, Hendrickson pointed out. 1. Major premise. People who are from God keep the Sabbath. 2. Minor premise. This Jesus does not keep the Sabbath. 3. Conclusion. Jesus is not from God. The other syllogism is 1. Major premise. The ungodly alone suffer great afflictions. 2. Minor premise. This man was born blind and grew to maturity blind. 3. Conclusion. This man is wicked and ungodly. Basic to the thinking of these religious leaders was a presupposition which excluded Jesus Christ. Our thinking is always presuppositional. We begin with a pre-theoretical, pre-reflective belief which governs our faith and thinking. Only as men's presuppositions are changed can their thinking be changed, and this conversion from the premise of fallen man to that of redeemed man is an act of God. The healed man answered with a wisdom beyond himself. "Why, herein is a marvellous thing, that ye know not from whence he is, and yet he hath opened mine eyes." He went on to say that this was a new event in history, for a blind man from birth to have his sight restored. Verse 32. "You are right," he said, "that God does not hear sinners." Verse 34. "If this man were not of God, he could do nothing." Verse 33. The response was a furious one. "You were totally born in sin. Do you think that you are fit to teach us?" Verse 34. The Pharisees therefore excommunicate the healed man. The conflict was a religious one. It could not be solved by rational discourse. The religious leaders began with radically different premises, and the discussion simply hardened them in their resolution. The miracle had not made Jesus more obviously a prophet or the Messiah, as far as they were concerned, but rather a threat to religion, a stumbling block for a naive people. The healed man was, in their eyes, a nobody, a person of no account. But they saw the nation as made up of too many such nobodies, all potentially dangerous if Jesus made them his followers. As a result, the conclusion was soon stated openly by Caiaphas. Ye know nothing at all, nor consider it expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. John chapter 11, verses 49 following. The preservation of the political entity was of primary importance to them. It would be wrong to say that such a goal was not important. The world is full of important things, but they all pale before the mandate. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. The Pharisees saw themselves as good men, the best men, but their priorities were false.